It seems that more Celtics than just Jaylen Brown have a legitimate beef with Team USA. Plus, the breaking news about Christian Barmore and what that could mean for the Patriots and maybe for Elliott Wolf going forward. And I've got to push back on Braden's critique of my music list a little bit, and we'll recap the Braden Show on the Cam Show, powered by Rogue Media Sports Network. All that and more coming up. Music. It is the Cam Show, powered by Rogue Media Sports Network. Welcome into another week. We will be having Braden Murray on the show once again later in the program. You might remember him as the host of the Braden Show on Thursday. We're at the home studio in suburban South Shore, Massachusetts, where it has been in a tizzy because if you thought the Jaylen Brown Team USA beef was over, you would be sorely mistaken, my friend. Sorely. And it reared its ugly head once again over the weekend, and also over the weekend found out that maybe Jaylen Brown isn't the only one who is part of the world champs who has a gripe or a legitimate gripe with Team USA basketball. But this all stems from Grant Hill being asked in an interview by Dan Patrick on Friday. It must have been Friday. It wouldn't have been Saturday. But I think it all kind of came out on Saturday with the Jaylen Brown tweet. But Dan Patrick is interviewing Grant Hill and asks him once again about the decision to pick Derek White over Jaylen Brown. This was one that I think caught me by surprise when it first happened. Way a while ago, earlier in the month, because I was like, oh, yeah, Derek White, that's awesome. And then I was like, oh, that's right. Jaylen Brown isn't on the team. And that was one that was like, I mean, Jaylen Brown's coming off playing some of the best basketball of his life. Like he's in his prime right now. And this is what Grant Hill had to say. I spoke to Brown's agent. I don't know if that was before or after things went out on Twitter, but yeah, I think the idea that there's a conspiracy theory, I always love a good conspiracy theory, but it truly was a basketball decision. And these are tough decisions. And Jaylen Brown picked something out of that he really did not like. So Jaylen Brown takes to Twitter, as he usually does. This is like old school. This feels like throwback like 5 years ago when people would just take to Twitter. It felt like we went away from that a little bit, but Jaylen Brown is keeping that alive. He goes on Twitter, says, Grant Hill calling me a conspiracy theorist is disappointing. I've been a VP since I was 21 years old. I have a great understanding. And the biggest problem with this is there's no punctuation in the whole tweet. Jaylen Brown's a really smart guy. Trust me, no one will let you forget it. There needs to be some punctuation in there. But Brown was clearly pretty pissed to hear that Grant Hill calls it the whole thing a conspiracy theory. And once again, like with this whole saga, there's just been like one thing where I'm like, yeah, I'm on this side. And then I hear something else and I'm like, oh, but also, can we stop with this? And this happens again. So first off, I want to ask you, why is Dan Patrick still doing this? Like, everyone get to ask Grant Hill the question, and Grant Hill was pretty open about it whenever the decision was made. 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, like he was pretty open and talked about it. And I think a lot of us didn't like the answer. Like it didn't excuse that, but he did, give the answer. And now it just pops up again because Dan Patrick is interviewing Grant Hill before the Olympics. And what else is he going to ask him, I guess? But it's just like we understand. Again, Jaylen Brown is a better player than Derek White in any facet and really any sense of the word. That's not to take away from Derek White. Jaylen Brown is that good. He should have been an all-NBA guy this year. He was the conference finals MVP for what that's worth, and he was the NBA finals MVP, which is worth a lot. So why then does he need to be asked again? Because that's that's going to be the same answer, and it's going to start this dialogue back up again. But on the flip side, why does Jaylen Brown need to engage in it again? He feels like he's defending his honor by saying he's not a conspiracy theorist. And like, I get that in a vacuum, but Jalen, you did say you didn't make the team because you've had problems with Nike. And whether that's true or not actually doesn't matter. Because while it may be true to the outside, that looks like a conspiracy theory. It does, especially after the GM says it's a basketball decision. And again, a lot of us think that's bullshit. We do. But you know what I mean? Like the Kennedy assassination still is fishy. It's still weird. But if you're saying that it was more than just Lee Harvey Oswald killing the president, you still sound like a conspiracy theorist. It is a conspiracy theory, right? No matter how much we think there's something fishy about it, it is a conspiracy theory. So to link it back to this, as much as we all believe that Jaylen Brown is a better player than Derek White, it does sound like a conspiracy theory. The Nike thing, as plausible as the Nike thing might be, it still sounds like a conspiracy theory. So the fact that this is being brought up again is like that sucks as a Celtics fan to hear, because it's just one more thing that could drive a stake in this great team, like an all-time great team with everyone coming back. It's like, what would mess this thing up? It would be if you were able to actually make these teammates not like each other. Because as much as you wanted to say over the last few years they don't like each other, clearly that was proven incorrect. And now, weeks after they win the NBA championship, here we go again. What else is going to drive them apart? Team USA and Grant Hill picking Derek White over Jaylen Brown, a Celtic over another Celtic, and then saying that Jaylen Brown is a conspiracy theorist for thinking he didn't get picked on the team because he's been critical of Nike in the past. That's what'll do it. And it stinks because I love Jaylen Brown as a player. I really do. But it's tough to argue that he doesn't let things get to him, whether for good or for bad. Because I think early in his career, he he did kind of let it go to his head in a bad way. And even as recently as 2023, when Jason Tatum goes down in that game 7 against Miami, Brown was like using all that fuel of I've been disrespected for years. Now I'm going to prove in the biggest moment that I am the best player on this team. And he didn't play to his strengths. He put the ball on the floor too much. Miami blitzed him and he had a terrible game. And then he gets the big contract, the biggest contract in NBA history. And again, we're thinking this could go one of two ways. He could make this, he could see this as I need to be the hero and play hero ball all season. I'm the best player on this team because I'm getting paid the most. Or he could use it as I'm the highest paid player in NBA history, and I'm going to show you why. Thankfully for Celtics fans, it was the latter, right? He said, I'm going to prove it. And by golly, he went out there and proved it. He had his best season, even better than the season he did make the All NBA team the year before. Should have been up there. And he stepped his game up even more in the postseason. A couple 40-point games. Again, conference and NBA Finals MVP. And showed it all. I mean, that defense that we thought was going to really rise up under Ime Udoka, which was good but not great, was great this year. Checking Luka the length of the floor and doing a really excellent job against him in the NBA Finals. We finally got the full product of Jaylen Brown. And now, again, with that interview he did before the finals of I don't give a shit about any of those personal accolades. It's the team accolades that I care about. The first time he gets snubbed for a personal accolade after winning the NBA championship, suddenly these things matter again. And as a Celtics fan, for the second year in a row, we have to look at this Jaylen Brown situation as it can go one of two ways. He can let this go to his head and take him out of the great habits that he got into last year that led his team to an NBA championship, with him being a huge, if not the biggest reason why. Or he can say, y'all didn't pick me for the Olympics, and I'm going to show you why this was a massive mistake. Could go one of two ways. And look, I mean, he has been a players rep VP. He was the youngest players rep VP in NBA Union history when he was like a 21-year-old. Um, so I I don't know what that has to do with also being a conspiracy theorist. You could be a good labor union leader and also believe we didn't land on the moon. I don't think those two are mutually exclusive. But what I think the biggest takeaway from me out of this whole saga is if you look at Jaylen Brown's Wikipedia page, it's pretty obvious he wrote the personal life section himself. That's the biggest takeaway for me. Brown is primarily a vegetarian, and his interests include Spanish language, history, meditation, philosophy, soccer, and anime. Who else reporting for Wikipedia would care about that? His interests include this is like when you take a new job and they're like, hey, we need to write a bio for you. Can you write us a few sentences about yourself? This is exactly what it is. Um, Brown was criticized by some as, quote, too smart to play in the NBA, with some scouts worrying that he would grow tired of playing basketball and instead opt to pursue other career paths. Who the hell else is writing that but Jaylen Brown? Who else is writing that? You're too smart to play in the league. By the way, those stories did come out, right? But he's he's what, 27, 28 years old in the league. That's like not a problem anymore that he's going to leave to go play chess or an entrepreneur. Okay. Yeah, at age 22, he became the NBA PA's youngest elected vice president. In recent years, he has spoken on the importance of education and technology at Harvard, MIT, and his alma mater, Cal Berkeley. Again, Jaylen Brown is a smart guy. He's smarter than and more thoughtful than a lot of players in the NBA. But he doesn't get asked to speak at Harvard because he's smart. He gets asked to speak at Harvard because he's smart and he plays in the NBA at a very high level because is a celebrity and he's smart. So like, clearly Jaylen Brown wrote that himself, which I kind of have a weird respect for. If I was in the NBA and I would still write my own Wikipedia page, maybe I would. But Jaylen, you got to get over this. It sucks, and there are a lot of people on your side, both in the media and in the fan base, and I'm sure well-connected people within the league and USA basketball. But it's done. It's done. You keep fighting the good fight, brother, and go prove it out there on the court that you are one of the 12 best players in the United States and that you are one of the 15 best players in the NBA and make another All-NBA team. And prove that you're one of the few that can do it at the highest level in the most pressure packed moments and win another championship. Because once you have all those accolades, no one gives a shit. Because I know this is a part of a story with this historic team, but nobody really gives a shit of Isaiah Thomas's legacy because he didn't make the dream team. He's a Hall of Famer. He's one of the best point guards ever, and he won back-to-back NBA championships, and he carried his teams there. At the end of the day, nobody cares that he didn't make the dream team. Really. But Jaylen Brown might not be the only Celtic who has now a gripe with Team USA. All that and more coming up with the Cam Show, powered by Rogue Media Sports Network. Cam Show, Rogue Media Sports Network from the South Shore Bureau, the Massachusetts Bureau, where we are recording today. And honestly, I talked all about that Jaylen Brown situation, and it looked like that was going to be the story of the weekend for the Celtics in relation to Team USA at the Olympics. And it might be the biggest story, but it is not the only story because the US with a dominant win over Serbia in the first game of group play. LeBron takes over, has a good game, some good Derek White minutes out there, some great Jrue Holiday minutes, of course. Not so great Jason Tatum minutes. And by that, I mean 0 minutes at all. Jason Tatum, the only player for Team USA who did not enter the game against Serbia. in game one of the Olympics in Paris. Why? Why? That's the question. Why did he not play at all? And that was the first question to Steve Kerr after the game. Adam Himmelsbach, who was there for the Globe, asked him, and Steve Kerr said, "I went with the combinations I felt would make sense." And I talked to him, Tatum, and he was incredibly professional. Kerr called Tatum, quote, "one of the best players in the world," end quote. Then why don't you play him? He says it's tough to play all 10 players in a 40-minute game versus a 48-minute game. Okay. Yep. That's true. He's better than Anthony Edwards. He's better than Tyrese Halliburton. But sure, that's true. Yeah, whatever. I mean, he's made 3 straight first team all NBAs. He was averaging, nearly a triple double in the conference finals in a series that was in part against Tyrese Halliburton. And he's a guy who's been on this team before. He has a gold medal at his house. Okay. It's not like he hasn't played Olympic basketball. In fact, last time he was one of the best players on a gold medal winning team in Tokyo in 2021. Played all 6 games, averaged almost 21 minutes, 15 points, 3 rebounds, over an assist, over the block, shot 50%, shot 45% from 3, which is way better than what we see from Tatum now. And won the gold medal. And by the way, he's played in FIBA many times before. Played at the U16 for FIBA in 2013, the U17s the year after, and the U19s in 2015. Won it all 3 times, and then won the gold medal. But now he's not good enough to play. Kevin Durant came back. Okay, I get it. Kevin Durant's a great player. He's won a couple gold medals. Tatum's only won 1, I guess. But like, Tatum is in his prime right now. He's one of the best 5 players in the NBA, according to the people who vote on it year after year after year. He just won a championship, and now he's not good enough to play for you? Huh. That's weird. I wonder if this is because it comes just a few days after Jason Tatum was the one verbally defending his teammate Jaylen Brown. You want to get into conspiracy theories for Team USA basketball? I'll go in there with you. I'll go with you, Jalen. You don't like the term. I'll take it. I'll be a conspiracy theorist if it gives me an explanation as to why Jason Tatum didn't play a single goddamn second of that first game at the Olympics. Make it make sense to me. Because they're going to say the same thing. Basketball decision. Same thing they said about Derek White over Jaylen Brown. Yeah. It just seems to be a little bit coincidental. Literally 2 days before, Tatum saying he's one of the best players in the league, doesn't get the respect he deserves. I should have spoken up for him sooner. And now he's a DNPHC, basically. Never happened to him at a FIBA competition, let alone the Olympics. That even more so than the Jaylen Brown thing, because this is now 2 rather than 1 situations I could point to. That, to me, stands out more of the conspiracy theory that Nike is pulling the strings here. That stands out more to me than the Jaylen Brown snub. Because now it's on top of the Jaylen Brown snub. You can say, Derek White just fits into our basketball team a little bit better, and you could even say Jaylen Brown didn't make the All-NBA team this year, which would have been a hollow excuse, but you can't use that with Tatum. You can't. He made the All-NBA team. He's made first team 3 straight years, and he's won a gold medal. He was one of your best players at the last Olympics. So make that make sense to me, please. Because now I'm in on all the conspiracy theories. Now I'm in on the Nike's calling the shots, and they don't want Jaylen Brown to play because he's against Nike, and they don't want Jason Tatum to play because he is for Jaylen Brown, who is against Nike. And now I'll take on another conspiracy theory of USA basketball just doesn't want this Celtics thing to happen. Steve Kerr he wants the Warriors to be the last dynasty before the second apron crap hits. It is funny that Like, it just seems like the whole world is kind of hurling stuff at the Celtics team. Yeah, we threw you a bone. Derek White's on the team on USA, but Jaylen Brown isn't, and that's gonna stoke a flame a few times throughout the summer. And your best player, Jason Tatum, he's gonna get a snub when he's actually on the team. Give me a break, man. Because now, not only is Tatum pissed that he's not playing, no matter what he says or how professional he is, of course he's pissed he's not playing. But I'm sure that coincidence is not lost on him that it's a few days after he said what he said about Jaylen Brown. So these guys who have liked each other privately for years, and everyone in the media is trying to say they don't like each other, they can't coexist. They're not good teammates to each other. They don't like seeing the other one succeed. All of that was bullshit because they're both pretty private guys and they're not best friends. So that's what the media tries to do. But now you don't think that's going to creep up in Jason Tatum's mind? He finally stands up for Jaylen Brown the way that the league has wanted him to, or the media has wanted him to for years. And then that affects his game. That affects how he is perceived. It's affecting his career. That can't feel good. That cannot feel good. And it makes me wonder how that could factor into this Celtics chemistry going forward. Because I'll use the Bill Simmons thing, the disease of more, from his great book of basketball. There's the championship teams have the secret, but the teams that really have the secret are the ones that don't get affected by the disease of more, which comes after winning a title. And everyone wants their own personal accolades and wants their time with the ball and wants their spot on the team to shine. Because I was thinking that's not going to happen to the Celtics. Because it if it did, it would have happened already, is kind of the way I thought about it. But Jaylen Brown really did seem selfless. It seemed like he really didn't care about those personal accolades. And now it kind of seems like he does. And now there's a rift between or being driven between he and Derek White and he and Jason Tatum. And they had responded all these times before, but it's like now it feels like it's coming from all angles. It's almost like the basketball world wants this team to get hit with the disease of more. Because that didn't happen with the '08 Celtics. Other circumstances, mainly injuries and the fact that they were aging anyway, kind of derailed them from winning more championships. And so that is understandable years later to say, it sucks that they didn't win more, but I get it. Nothing we could do there. But if the disease of more is what takes this team down from a potential dynasty, that's going to fucking sting. That's going to hurt because of a media concoction and because of something as irrelevant as USA basketball at the freaking Olympics. We all love Team USA basketball. We love watching it and seeing their superiority every 4 years. But would you trade a USA gold medal for your team not winning a championship? Hell no. So in that sense, it is freaking irrelevant. And it stinks that might be what drives a stake in this team. So that's not great. But it's probably better than the news that the New England Patriots got over the weekend. In fact, last night, Sunday night, they put this out that Christian Barmore is out right now. He's been diagnosed with blood clots, and no timetable is imminent for him. That is not what this team needed at all. And of course, from a human element, it's not what Christian Barmore needed. This is scary shit, man. This could end Christian Barmore's career. That wouldn't be crazy. Blood clots are a really serious thing, and it is playing with fire big time. In fact, I've known people in my life, very amateur athletes, at least one who had to completely give it up because they found out about blood clots. Another one who is more susceptible to blood clots, and they had to monitor it on the bench when he was playing games. Like it's not a good situation. And Christian Barmore comes off the best year of his career, signs a big deal. In fact, it was 4 years, up to 92 million. It's the biggest deal in Patriots history, signed by someone not named Tom Brady. That's a big deal in more ways than one. And all of a sudden, through something out of his control, it all could be gone. A foundational piece for this Patriots team. And to be honest, I had a segment planned about the Jabril Peppers deal, which happened at the end of last week, which I like, by the way. I love Jabril Peppers and his role in this team. But the whole thing was going to be about how many guys from a team that was terrible last year, it was 4-13 and doesn't look to be any better this year, do you want to re-sign? The Ramondre Stevenson deal, I was like, even though it's more like a 2-year deal than a 4-year deal. Jabril Peppers, I like, but it just kind of got the wheels turning about that. And the other one that was in there was Christian Barmore, whom I love as a player. But there's always been something with Christian Barmore in terms of, there was rumors at Alabama. Did he like football? Did he care enough? And these are the things I was thinking about this weekend because he wasn't in practice the first few days. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me, man. Like, here's a guy who just signed this big deal. It was a bit of a risk, and here he is not in camp the first few days. Well, now do I feel like an asshole? Guy's life is up in the air if he plays football right now. No timetable for his return is the understatement of the century. He might not play football again. And obviously, with insurance policies and everything, he's going to get taken care of financially. But my God, he's going to miss out on big time future earnings, and more importantly, miss out on a career. Here's a guy who's younger than me. Okay, he just had his 25th birthday. He's really on the ascent in his dream. For as much as people say he might not like football, I happen to believe he probably really likes football if he's at this stage and wants to play in the NFL and be at the top of his profession. And now it's a life decision. It's not a football decision. And these come up every once in a while. In fact, we just had to link it back to Boston sports again, we just had the anniversary of Reggie Lewis's death the other day, the 27th, um, for a guy who had a heart problem and did all he can to continue playing basketball. 15 doctors, 15 of the best doctors in the world told him he couldn't play basketball anymore. One experimental doctor told him he could, and he died playing a pickup game. Like, these are more important decisions than how am I going to play this year. Nathan Horton, when he left the Bruins for Columbus, a year later, he had debilitating back problems. He could barely get in and out of his car. And he's like, I've got hockey left in me, but I can't play. I've got a whole life to worry about. And that's what Christian Barmore's got to worry about. He's 25 years old. And it's a lot of money. But is there an amount of money that is worth it to potentially die out there on the field? I don't think so. And, you obviously can't blame him if he doesn't either. So from a Christian Barmore standpoint, this really sucks. This really sucks. It's a guy who has a ton of talent and, again, is completely on the ascent. And it looks like it might be taken away from him. Like, I as a Patriots fan am just going to have to be in the mindset that he's not going to play. Like, I don't want to get my hopes up on that. And then from the Patriots standpoint, yeah, for the same reasons, it really sucks. It really sucks. This was, again, a foundational piece. A guy you've been looking for more than a couple of years, since before this dynasty run ended. A guy that could do the things that he can do in the interior, in the middle of the defensive line. You really haven't had a guy like that since Will Fork. I'm not saying he's Will Fork, but you haven't had a guy like that since. Dominique Easley, flop. Malcolm Brown, eh. So this was a guy that you really, I think, needed for your rebuild. and now it's becoming a life in jeopardy thing. So we'll obviously see how that goes. But again, I wouldn't expect him to play this year. That's I mean, again, the people I knew who've had blood clots and dealt with it, like they were out of work for months, like regular jobs, desk jobs. And here's a guy who's playing the most manual labor of most manual labor jobs you could take. He's playing football, tackle football. So, man, that news was not an easy one to hear. So, shout out to Christian Barmore, man. I hope this isn't as bad as it seems. But certainly not a good looking sign for him or for the New England Patriots. I have to rebut some things that Braden Murray said on this program. And there are a few things I like doing more than that. That is coming up next on The Cam Show, powered by Rogue Media Sports Network. It is The Cam Show, powered by Rogue Media Sports Network. I am joined now by a very, very special guest, the host of The Braden Show, as you might know him. The man who stepped in admirably and is now put on tape for all employers to see. Braden Murray, co-host of The Cam Show, host of The Braden Show. Braden, how was it on Thursday? How did you like the power chair?
I liked the chair a lot. I think I talked about it on the show. It was weird looking into the camera without you here. Just me and the folks at home. But it took some getting used to.
It does. And I'm sure it was just tough in general not seeing my face there.
Right. Just nothing to bounce off of for a couple of the segments.
Yeah. Now you know it's like Locked on Baylor all the time. I get used to it, but I think it's made me a weirder person to just talk straight to a camera.
To yourself
Yeah. It explains a lot, I would say. You went very music heavy on the episode, which is not to be surprising. You're a big music guy. You've got good takes for the most part on music.
Thank you.
And there is one that I wanted to focus on because you kind of laid it up with your show. You went over my top 5 songs ever written.
Yes.
Written in the student newspaper 5.5 years ago. And you opened it up. He said maybe Cam wants to talk about it a little bit, rebut a little bit. That's exactly what I want to do today, Braden.
Okay.
Because look, and I'll open with this. I'm okay taking criticism of this music. What is great about it is it's so subjective. It's like the most subjective thing ever. So what's funny is the title is Subjectively Speaking, Cam Stewart's top 5 songs ever written. And because I had written the title as Objectively Speaking, and the editor changed that to make more sense. But yes, this was my senior year of college, and I think I thought about it a little too much as the top 5 ever written versus like the songs I think are great. You know what I mean? I think I appealed to the masses a little bit more than I would appeal to just myself, which you and Zach did talk about in there as well. Like, obviously, Don't Look Back in Anger is on there at number 5 as something that I would see as a top 5 song ever written. But, there's some other picks throughout the list that I would change. There's some that I would add to honorable mentions. And this is something we've talked about off cam. But number 5, Don't Look Back in Anger. I'm gonna keep it there.
Okay.
Because why not? In order to, I thought about just thinking it all through again and doing a new top 5, but I don't think that's as fun as me just critiquing the top 5 I already have.
Okay.
Next best song was Wonderwall by Oasis.
Do you really think that?
No, I was going to say, I think Live Forever is a better song. I think Wonderwall, for me, is like my 5th favorite Oasis song. Not to say it's not a great song, but like Live Forever is a better song, and I think Supersonic's a better song. That one was like, hey, that was an appeal to the masses. Like, this is the song you guys know. Champagne Supernova might even be a better song, which is the other one that I think a lot of people in the U.S. know.
Yeah.
Number 4, Light My Fire. I'm going to stand by that.
I
I
mean, I
okay,
would
go
pick
ahead.
Riders
Go
on the
ahead.
Storm, but I think it's
Mhm.
good that you have it in their next best.
Yeah, and I was gonna say I might like Break On Through to the Other Side better.
Okay, Zach mentioned that one on Thursday.
Yeah, I really like that song. And I didn't just mention Braden that it hit number one, because that is big, but it's not the thing I care about. Obviously, Don't Look Back in Anger didn't come close to that. It's that it hit number one in the middle of 1967,
Mm-hmm.
which is obviously like the middle of the great, still British invasion, like great
Yeah.
era for music. But also that's the summer of love, 1967, and like literally like this time of year, I think it was July 22nd that it hit number one. Like that just fit right in the middle. It was perfect for, and obviously, the sexual innuendo in it. It's perfect for the time.
Right.
And you didn't mention the story of Frank Sinatra. Have you ever heard this story about Frank Sinatra hearing that song for the first time?
No.
So Sinatra hears it on the radio in his car, and he's so pissed about this and the state of music that he rips out his car radio and throws it out the window
Just
the first time he hears Light My
because
Fire.
it's better than his music. Is that why he's upset?
I guess. Which look, I love Sinatra,
Right. Who doesn't?
but that makes so much sense. Like this is where music was heading, um, and it I think it's such a cultural importance. Like we hit, it's around the time, by the way, that Sergeant Pepper's comes out, same year
Yeah.
Sergeant Pepper's, which is really the shift from the Beatles being, although great, really poppy, to a little bit more thoughtful,
Mm-hmm.
with their next couple of albums, and eventually they're too smart for their own good, and they have to break up. So in a weird way, the Beatles are tied into this song as well. But I love "Light My Fire." I think it's great. I think this is back before the times that they really needed to think about having a radio version of a song. That's probably the first time they really need to think about it, because it's like whatever, a 7.5 minute song.
Right.
Um, so love the Doors, greatest American band of all time. So
We have talked at
um,
length about that. Yes.
number three, Sympathy for the Devil. Sure, I love that Rolling Stones song. You like Satisfaction better. I get that. I can hear
Mm-hmm.
that. This is again kind of a like 60s mashup of cultural importance. So
Right.
um, just love that song. Number two is where I'd make a big change.
Yeah.
Uh,
This was an interesting pick.
this is one I appealed to the masses on, and I shouldn't have. Let It Be by the Beatles is number two. Um, yeah, I
I
just
think that's
I wouldn't do it. Beautiful song and it's great.
it's a
And
great
the
song.
next, and I put the next best as John Lennon's Imagine, which is iconic, but I also don't think I'd put up there. Like there are 10 or 12 songs
Mm-hmm.
that I like better from the Beatles,
Yeah.
than Let It Be. And if I had to do a Beatles song to replace it, like, okay, you can take Let It Be out, but you have to put a Beatles song in the top five,
Mm-hmm.
what would you put in there, Braden?
Um,
Because I know you listed a bunch on Thursday, but what if you had to pick one?
that's a good question. Maybe something.
Okay, it's deep.
Mm-hmm.
That's deep. Because I think I would do Back in the USSR.
Ooh, that's a good one. That is a
I
good one.
love that freaking song. It's actually probably my second favorite Beatles song, but what I think is great about it, and what puts it best in the best written
Mm-hmm.
category, is, and our pal Red has talked about this a lot. It's the first punk song ever. That's a punk rock song.
Yeah, and that album
And
also had one of the first like metal songs of all time with Helter Skelter.
yes. Yes. And Back in the USSR kicks ass,
It
man.
does.
And
It
and
really
what I
does.
love about it is it's actually very Beatles, and not in the lovey-dovey let it be way, like the very deep way.
Yeah.
The Beatles took the piss all the
Oh,
time. What's
absolutely.
so great about the Beatles is like they were kind of asses
A
in
little bit.
in the public eye. You know what I mean? Like they loved making fun of stuff. And
That's the song.
Let's
Like,
make fun of Chuck Berry is what this song was.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love that it's just like in the middle of the Cold War and they're
that too.
like,
That too.
let's write it from the from the view of a Russian spy. But yeah, it does have a lot of that in there. And I just think that whole thing's great. You know, I love the Beach Boys too, but the Beach Boys are singing about California girls, and these guys are singing about girls from the Eastern Bloc.
Yeah,
I think is just hilarious.
the
Um,
Ukraine girls.
yeah, they really knocked me out, man.
Mm-hmm.
All of them.
Leave the West
They leave the
behind.
West behind. That's so good. That's so good lyrically. And George is always on my mind is a great kind of geographical double entendre. So that would be my pick, and my next best would probably be my favorite Beatles song, which is "In My Life."
Oh,
I think that's beautiful, but there's so many other ones you could pick over "Let It Be." Like this was a bad misstep by me, and I think I got that writer's remorse like hours after it was published.
mm-hmm.
This was not like a couple years to think about. I was like, damn, like I could have done so much more. I'm trying to think of what other great ones. Like "A Day in the Life" is one of my personal favorites.
Right.
It's edgy for the time in that there are not a lot of songs like it. A few different vantage points. Obviously, a lot going on musically in the middle there, much like a Helter Skelter. Um, yeah, there's just so many more. There's so many better ones could have done than "Let It Be." And look again, "Let It Be" is a great song, but I don't know. "Yesterday," if you want to go
Yesterday, yeah.
like even
Help,
kind of the original type of Beatles, "Help," great song,
Blackbird.
better than "Let It Be." "Blackbird," cultural importance as well.
Yeah.
Um, whether people understood it at the time or not. Yes, all those could have been over "Let It Be." So that would be out of the top 5 entirely. At number 1, I'm sticking with, just so you know, I'm sticking with
That's a bad
Bittersweet
call.
Symphony.
That's just a
That's a
bad call.
great, great, great song. Basically 2 on the list for the Rolling Stones because they wrote the music. Perfect. Perfect. And what sucks about it, which I wrote about in here, is that I had to agree with not Richard Ashcroft. He sings in The Verve. Chris Martin from Coldplay, whom I don't like, but at a live show in 2005, he brought out Richard Ashcroft and said it was the best song ever written. And I was like, you know what? He's right. He's right. Honorable mentions though, I would be adding some on here. Um, "A Change Is Gonna Come" by Sam
Ooh,
Cooke,
yeah.
which if we did a re-rack might be in the top 5. If we're talking about obviously huge cultural significance, but also a great song. Like both, it would stand on its own in both categories as very socially relevant,
Mm-hmm.
and in a weird way, like still socially relevant, in that it would it paints a great picture
Right.
of the plight at the time without being really graphic. Like I think Sam Cooke doesn't have to say like, "Hey, we're being hosed down by fire
Mm-hmm.
hoses for marching for freedom," and instead kind of paints an everyday life that is very bleak. Um, so it's like beautiful in that way of being very painful. So it pulls a great cultural significance while also on its own being a great song.
Right. Have you
And then
seen
combines both of those. I think it's one of the most important songs ever.
Have you seen the movie One Night in Miami?
No, I haven't seen it yet. I heard it wasn't good though.
It was okay, but it was about Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali,
Hmm.
Jim Brown, and Sam Cooke, and it's kind of the background for that song. Um, Malcolm X was like, "Hey Sam, you're a black man. Why aren't you writing about what we're
Yes.
going through?" And then he plays them a Bob Dylan song that does. He's like, "You're letting this white guy tell
Hmm.
our story. You should get out
Okay,
there."
because I knew that was always kind of the story was like he was writing like kind of Motowny type hits. Like he
Yeah.
wasn't in a group, but don't know much biology, like good
Mm-hmm.
music, but also like lacking some substance. And yeah, it was him kind of being like, I need to be part of the cause here. And writes just a banger, performs just a unbelievable song. So yeah, he got in on that pretty quick, and then unfortunately was killed soon after. So he would be, if not in honorable mentions, I would honestly, I would probably have him in the top 5.
Okay.
Oh, and also another point before I go through the rest of the honorable mentions, I didn't make it so like each great artist would be represented. I didn't want to go down that route. So that's why there's no Bob Dylan song.
But
like, I don't think there needs to be a top 5 list of top songs ever written with Bob Dylan in it. We can still appreciate Bob Dylan as a great, great, great songwriter.
No. Sorry.
But I couldn't
That's
not
bad.
have Oasis on there.
You don't need to have the Verve on here. You could have Bob Dylan.
But they're the best song though.
That's not true.
They had the best song. I don't have a lot of great bands on there or artists on there. I don't have Amy Winehouse on there.
No, Bob Dylan should be on this list, not as an honorable mention.
Would you pick something else other than like a Rolling Stone?
I think that's a good call.
Okay.
Is it my favorite song of his? No, but I think it's in lists of this type. It usually represents the Dylan catalog.
London Calling is still great, but I would rather have a song like More Than a Feeling on there. I think that's one of the best rock songs ever written. I think Zombie by the Cranberries should be on there as one of the best hard rock songs ever written, as well as that cultural significance too. This could be a whole segment someday, but I'm a huge Cranberries fan, and I want to throw this at you, Braden, while we're here and while we're talking about it. The Cranberries top 3. So Zombie, Linger, Dreams is what we'll go for the top 3 right now. I think that's the popular choice for their top 3. I think that stacks up. Just from a top 3, I think that stacks up as well as like any band's top 3. Other than maybe the Beatles or like the Stones. I know you're not a huge Stones fan. But like that top 3 is incredible.
That's a solid top 3. That's a pretty solid
pretty
top
awesome,
3.
Man. Like there are bands, and again, this is subjective, but there are a lot of bands out there who are much more well known than the Cranberries that I don't think their top 3 really comes close. Like everyone knows the name of like Velvet Underground, which I know you're a fan of, and like the Grateful Dead. But like if you just went up on the street, like how many people can name 3 songs by those bands?
Probably nobody.
You know, or
they're just not as culturally relevant.
Or even like Nirvana, who I have Smells Like Teen Spirit on the list too, on the honorable mentions. Very famous band, but if you ask people on the street, can you name their top 3? I think they'd struggle. I think a lot of people would struggle. I think they'd know Smells Like Teen Spirit, or better yet, a lot of people would just be like, "What's the one that I don't know what they're saying?" Like, you know, I don't think they're listing like a top 10 of Nirvana, you know?
Yeah.
Or even The Doors, a band I love. Don't know that many people can do their top 3. But like the Cranberries, you know, they might not name it, but you can be like, "Oh, this song, Zombie. Yeah, sure."
Okay.
Or you remember this one? "Oh yeah, Dreams. Yeah, I've heard that a bunch." Linger, of course. Who hasn't heard You Have to Let It Linger? You know what I mean? That band. Aerosmith, a band I really like.
I think
and
Aerosmith,
that a lot of people know, but is their top 3 better than the Cranberries' top 3?
What's the Aerosmith top 3? Walk This Way.
Yeah. I mean, I would put Dream On,
Walk
Sweet
This Way,
Emotion, and Walk This Way.
Ooh, that's tough. I might go Aerosmith there, actually.
You're a very learned music man. I would value your opinion over most of the American public when it comes to this. But you see, I mean, like,
yeah, but that's close.
It's up there with some of the bands we hold in the highest regard.
Mm-hmm. They're not in the Hall of Fame yet, are they? I don't think so.
No. Which, I mean, that thing's a joke.
You know who is in the Hall of Fame?
No.
50 Cent.
Yeah. Yeah. Oasis isn't.
No.
and they don't really care to be. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. What else? What else do we have in the honorable mentions? Born to Run, sure.
Yeah.
My Generation, yeah. Great Balls of Fire, yeah. I didn't say it was a
Good dude.
you know, a great person contest. Yeah, I'd have More Than a Feeling in there. I'd have Zombie. I would have.
Would you take any of the songs currently in there out, or just add to it?
No, I mean, no, probably not. I would add to it because I think if I'm remembering this correctly, I gave like 10 or 12 honorable mentions in the original copy, and they were like, "Hey, you gotta limit it.
Gotta reel it in."
So I think that's probably what happened. Like, I would probably have an Amy Winehouse song on there, and if we're being honest, I think it would be Valerie, even though that's a cover of the Zootons. Although Tears Dry on Their Own is a really great song.
Rehab
was the big hit. Yep, in the States. Back to Black was huge. Yeah, I mean that's. I didn't get too 2000s-y with it. I think Crazy's the only one. Gnarls Barkley. I have some that would be in my personal favorites. I think Warwick Avenue by Duffy would be on there, which is a song that not a lot of people know, unfortunately. Face Down by the Red Jumpsuit Apparatus. The Way I Live by Baby Boy to Prince. If no rap songs, by the way. How about this question to close things out on this segment of the rebuttal, Braden? We'll each pick one. If you were to pick a rap song to go in either the top 5 or the honorable mentions, what would it be?
Maybe A Tribe Called Quest Scenario.
Okay.
Zach liked that pick.
Zach's a big rap guy.
Zach is a big rap guy.
Zach, I'm sure, has some thoughts. This is really tough. I think if I had to pick one,
or New York State of Mind, Nas. Is that what it's called? New York State of Mind or Empire State of Mind? Empire State of Mind.
Empire State of Mind is Jay-Z. Yeah. Okay. And I will get buyer's remorse on this later, but I'm gonna pick Nothing But a G Thing. Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre.
Okay.
That's what I'm gonna pick. I'm ignoring, unlike the other songs, which I guess is unfair, I'm ignoring the social relevance thing, which would be, Fight the Power, Straight Outta Compton, those kinds of things. I also thought about 99 Problems, Jay-Z. I also thought about The Real Slim Shady, which we had to talk about off the air the other day, that yes, Eminem was a big time. He was legit, a little before your time. Anyway, that's the. I mean, I didn't really change much. I'm not writing out the top 5 list again, but I wanted to push back on that a little bit so that we could meet in a common ground.
Okay.
I felt like we really came together there.
I think we did.
I'd like to. If you want, I would really like to hear yours. If you want to write one out this week.
Okay, I'll think I'll get
using kind of that same criteria of have some social relevance in there. Don't be hamstrung to it. Don't let that be your only thing. Don't make the same mistake I did with Let It Be.
Okay.
Even though it didn't really have cultural, I don't know. I don't know why I picked it. I wouldn't even pick it over Imagine, which I think gets a little overrated these days. Anyway, this has been the Cam Show, Rogue Media Sports Network. We're going to be back tomorrow, which is trade deadline day, Braden. I'm going to go over some of the best trade deadline deals in Red Sox history. And we're also going to tap into your brain a little bit, which I can't wait for. All that and more tomorrow. Be sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram at The Cam Show Show, because this is The Cam Show Show.
Rogue Media Sports.